Imagine for a moment that somewhere beyond the reach of every telescope, beyond every equation, there exists an endless library of worlds. A place where every choice you ever made, every opportunity missed, every word spoken or left unsaid branches into another reality. An ever-expanding multiverse of infinite possibilities. In one world, history unfolded exactly as you remember it. In another, you never existed at all. Perhaps the Roman Empire never fell. Perhaps the dinosaurs never vanished. Perhaps tomorrow has already happened, and somewhere, somehow, another version of you remembers it all. Tonight we take a glimpse through the cracks and explore the vast endless sea of this multiverse and break against the shores of new, unexplored worlds.
There's a door in the wall. There's a crack in the sky. There's a version of me who never said goodbye. There's a city of gold. There's a field full of ash. There's a road where we made it, and one where we cried.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Common Anomaly Podcast. You're listening to Season 3, Episode 14. I'm your host, Stuart James. Joining me today is Clayton James. How's it going, brother?
It's going great.
Feeling good today?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be a fun topic. We're talking about parallel universes or parallel worlds, alternate realities, whatever you want to call it. A lot of fun with this one this week. I'm glad we're back in our regular studio, Studio A. How was your week?
It was good. It's been busy though.
Yeah, it's been a very busy time, but I'm in a good mood, and I'm really happy with last week's episode. Audience probably won't realize this, but that was a bitch of an episode for us, wasn't it? That was a struggle. Everything about that episode
everything
was
went
challenging. Recording it, researching it, editing it, every step of the way just felt difficult. For whatever reason, the stars were just not aligning. But I think the product at the end of the day was really good and was really well received. We even got a fan reached out who made like some little merch design out of something you said. Something random came out of your mouth.
As it often does.
Yeah, and a fan of the show sent us some merch designs that they'd built up. So that was really cool. So thanks to him. You know who you are. But you had an idea for like a merch contest. Do you want to talk about that before we dig into everything here?
I mean, there's not much to talk about.
We really
submit a design. We might use it.
Yeah, we really should have discussed the details of that before we started recording in terms of how that would work. And yeah. Well, maybe news on that to come on a later episode. But maybe we'll, because we want to get a merch shop up, and a lot of people have been asking about a merch shop, and we've got some fun ideas in the pipe. Maybe we'll run a little contest for designs or something. But news will follow on a later episode about that. But let's dig into this. So this sparked up because of a couple like really fun urban legend stories that you and I both enjoy.
Yeah.
There's the man from Taured.
Yep.
And the man from Luxaria, which are two very kind of similar stories. Why don't you start off with the man from Taured and give us the details on that? I think people will actually recognize these stories once you start to hear them because they're a lot of fun and they're kind of out there.
Yes, so the man from Taured, this story actually begins in Japan, which is fitting because I just wanted to mention before we started looking on the RSS this past week.
Yeah.
We got a whole bunch of downloads in Japan.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It looked like at least a couple people in Japan were actually binging through the show and watching every episode.
That's right. Of the past week, of the past 7 days, as of this recording, almost 45% of our downloads, our audio downloads, all came from Japan.
Yeah, so that's exciting to see, especially people that are like going back and listening to the entire catalog. So for me and my brother, a heartfelt arigato.
Is that how you say it? Arigato?
Arigato.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Please feel free to correct me if I pronounced that wrong.
Yeah,
anyway,
no, that was really, really fun to see. Yeah.
Anyway, 1954, Tokyo. A well-dressed businessman arrives at the airport. He's there on business. He's passing through customs, and the customs officials pause as they're looking over his passport, because it's a legit-looking passport. It's full of travel stamps from all over the world. But they turn to the cover of the passport, and it's a country that does not seem to exist. A country called Taured. They ask this man where he's from. This man speaks Japanese. He speaks several other languages. He's very well traveled. And he says he's from Taured. The customs officials are insisting this country does not exist. This is a fake passport.
Yeah. But he was like, no, I've even been through this airport before. He had like a previous stamp in the passport from that same airport.
Yeah. So I've been here half a dozen times. I've been through this airport. I've never encountered any issue. And, he's happily providing all these other supporting documents. He provides a driver's license that was issued in Taured. He shows them banknotes from the country of Taured.
Yep.
He shows them business documents, from this company he's representing, a company based in Taured. He's got all this stuff. They say, okay, we've never heard of this country.
Yeah.
They bring out a map and they say, point to this country on a map. He points to an area on the border of Spain and France. This area he points to is called Andorra, which is a small country today. It's a unique kind of country. It's one of the world's smallest countries. It has two heads of state. They're like co-princes. Okay. One is the president of France, and one is some Spanish official, like head of the archdiocese in Spain.
Okay.
And they both share the role of the head of state of this country. But it is its own country. It has a seat at the United Nations.
Yeah.
It has its own parliament, but it's called Andorra.
All right.
It's one of the world's smallest countries. But he insists this is where the kingdom of Taured is located. A kingdom that has existed for 1,000 years. He's becoming quite angry at this point.
Yeah, like how could you not have heard of Taured?
You're playing an awful trick on me. Yeah. He's getting very angry. Customs officials, they don't know what to do with them. These are legit looking documents from a country that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So while they figure out what they're going to do with him, because they can't just let him through customs.
Yeah, it's quite a conundrum, because on one hand, you can't readily falsify what he's saying, but you can't prove it either. And he's not necessarily done anything wrong. You just can't verify what he's telling you, right? It doesn't fit.
While they're figuring out what to do with this man, they put him in a hotel room at the airport, under guard.
Yep.
The door is guarded by 2 customs officials, and he's just going to stay in this hotel overnight while they figure out what to do with him. He has a meal delivered to him. After he finishes his meal, he says he's going to lay down and take a nap. The next morning comes. They knock on the door. They open the door. The man is gone. All his possessions are gone. He's just disappeared.
And the bed doesn't look slept in.
Yeah.
There's no sign of the food that was delivered either, apparently, right? It's as if the hotel room was always empty.
Yeah, as if this man never existed. Both these customs officials are reprimanded for letting this man escape. Yep. They insist they were watching that door the entire night. No one left. No one entered. There was no other way out of that hotel room.
Do we know what floor he was on?
He was on the 6th floor.
Okay. Right.
So like a fall from the window would have killed him.
Yeah, unless he's Spider-Man.
Yeah. So what is this story? Where did this man come from? What people say is...
He came from Taured.
He came from...
Obviously.
An alternate parallel universe.
Yeah.
Where history unfolded differently, and this country of Taured actually existed. And somehow, briefly, he stepped into our world.
Stepped through a portal. Tripped. What do they call it? No clipping. What episode was that?
We're talking about...
Yeah, the back rooms. So go back to that, and if you want to understand what that term means, reference to video games, when there's a glitch in a video game and you accidentally step through a wall that's supposed to be solid and you end up in between the game environment and this kind of blank nothingness.
Yeah.
But if we do live in a universe where there's other realities that are happening parallel to our own, maybe it's possible to fall to no clip from one universe, from one reality into another. This other story, it's very similar to it. Actually, I think there might be some argument that these two cases are conflated because there's a lot of overlap here. But I'll just briefly run down the details of the man from Luxaria. Very similar case. One Jopar Vorin, or Joseph Vorin. This is around 1850. So much earlier, the man from Taured, that's 1950s, right?
Yeah, 1954.
1850, this man just kind of appeared on the streets of Frankfurt, Germany, seeming very confused and disoriented. He claimed to be from a country called Luxaria on a continent known as Sakura. Neither the country nor the continent seeming to exist in our reality. He seemed to be able to speak some broken German and was able to communicate with authorities in this way, but it was very rough. But he spoke fluently several other languages, none that anyone else could understand or identify. Eventually they worked out he had some rough German, so he could communicate. He practiced a religion that seemed to very closely resemble Christianity, but it was known to him as Ispetation. Is that
Ispetation?
Ispatian? I don't know.
One of those.
It's one of those pronunciations, but I guess very close to Christianity, but not Christianity. And he claimed to be traveling to the continent of Ulpar, or Europe, and he was searching for his long-lost brother, I guess, who was lost in a shipwreck. So he was searching for his brother. I thought that was a fun, interesting detail. When questioned, he could not explain how he got to Germany. He didn't know how he got there. This reminds me of crisis apparitions, and that's why the detail of the missing brother popped out to me. Because have you ever heard of crisis apparitions? You have a strong emotional connection to someone in your family, maybe it's a child, and all of a sudden you'll get a sudden knowing that they're in trouble.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Okay.
And you'll just know you've got to call them and say, don't get on that train, or that sort of thing, right? Maybe those intense emotions around that connection and impending danger, knowing someone you're close to is in trouble, maybe that emotion is actually the trigger that pops you from one dimension into another.
Maybe.
I really love these stories. It wakes up the imagination. I like the idea that there's people just like you and me living out their lives in these other worlds that are very similar to our world, but not our world. It reminds me of the TV show Sliders. Do you remember Sliders?
I remember Sliders. I haven't watched it in a very long time.
Yeah, I tried to find it.
It's on Pluto TV.
No, I tried looking. It's not there.
It's totally there.
I don't know.
I
Are
know
you
it's
using a
there.
VPN or something? Because I looked.
I don't
couldn't
use a
find it.
VPN. Oh my goodness gracious me. I might be from an alternate timeline
Your universe
that has a different
has
Pluto
Sliders
TV.
with Pluto TV, and my universe apparently does not. I specifically searched for it. I couldn't find it on Pluto, and I even thought, oh, he must be mistaken. He must be talking about Tubi, and I looked on Tubi, and they don't have it on Tubi either.
I know. I don't.
No.
It's Pluto TV. It's on there. Don't tell me it's not
But
on
anyway,
there. I saw it.
audience that has no idea what Sliders is this conversation is probably getting really boring for them.
Okay,
So-
yes. Let's go back to the parallel worlds.
Yeah.
Where does this idea come from? How did this become a thing? Because it is an idea that is taken very seriously by mainstream science.
On one hand, these are fun stories that it could be very easy to write off as, fun urban legends, right? Which on one hand they are. But there is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is a very real thing and has basis in our understanding of physics. So it was first proposed in 1957 by Hugh Everett III, who's attempting to solve the quantum measurement problem. Do you know what the quantum measurement problem is? I'm assuming it's the problem with why does a wave function collapse when you observe it.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that specific term, but yes, this is a problem in quantum physics. I believe that problem was first described in something called the double slit experiment.
Yeah.
And a variation of this experiment goes back all the way to the early 1800s. This English physicist named Thomas Young was doing experiments with light. There was this whole argument whether light was a wave or whether it was a particle.
Yeah.
How does light travel? This physicist was trying to prove that light is a wave. And what he did was he shone a light on a barrier with these two little slits in it for the light to pass through. If light was traveled as a particle, what he would see on the other side would be two very distinct spots of light where the light had passed through. But he didn't see this. What he saw was an interference pattern. Light and dark bands from waves interfering with each other, and at parts, waves canceling each other out, and an interference pattern. The conclusion was light travels as a wave. Fast forward to the 1970s. This experiment was repeated, but in a much different form. Instead of just shining a light source through these two slits, they would fire electrons
One
at
at
a
a
time
Yeah.
through these slits. And what they got was the same interference pattern. But how could that be if these electrons
Yeah.
were moving through one at a time? What's interfering with it? Conclusion is that it's interfering with itself, in that these subatomic particles exist in a probabilistic state.
Yeah. That's what you call, if I'm correct, superposition.
Yeah.
Where it's a single quantum object is occupying many different locations in space at the same time, all simultaneously.
Yeah. It doesn't travel as a neat little self-contained particle. It's more a cloud of possibility.
The most interesting part about this to me is that it suddenly takes the form of an individual specific particle once you observe it.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
And that's a problem because they don't understand. So it's like, how can it be in this probabilistic state and then you observe it and the probabilities collapse? And that was a big problem.
yeah.
That was a big problem. What is the interaction that is forcing it to collapse into a single point? And that's why the many worlds interpretation has quite a bit of traction, is because it solves that problem. There is no collapse. You're just observing the probability that is in your universe, in your unique universe. But really, all those other probabilities of that superposition all exist in their own separate universes. So there doesn't need to be a collapse.
Yeah. I just want to clarify collapse a bit, because one of the problems with this experiment, they fire these electrons through, they get an interference pattern. But when they altered the experiment, they attached a detector that would detect as the electron passed through one of these slits.
Yep.
At the point it passed through. If that was being looked at, if there was some sort of instrument attached that detected that, there was no interference pattern. It went away. There would just be two neat little bands of light on the other side. Once you look at it, you don't get that interference pattern. It stops being a wave and behaves more like a particle.
Yeah.
What role does the observer play here? What changes just by observing something? I guess what this theory puts forward is that all these different states exist at once, but you as an observer only get to see one of them. But they all still exist.
In their own unique universes that are playing out. So you flip a coin and you get heads, all right? That's your universe. But you also got tails, but just in another universe.
Yeah.
And every quantum object in the universe is having those same branching realities where everything happens. And yeah, that's what gives us this idea that there's parallel realities. So there could be a lot of different versions of our world unfolding. I'm sure there's a universe out there where this podcast is very successful.
I think it's pretty successful. I mean, for what it is.
Well, let me rephrase it then. There's another version, another universe where we're as popular as Joe Rogan. And then there's another universe where we never started this podcast at all, right?
It would take quite a few quantum fluctuations to get us the subscriber count Joe Rogan has. Quite a few indeed.
Yeah, that's a very rare universe, I'm sure.
But
I'm sure
it exists.
But it exists. It's out there somewhere.
As long as such things were dependent upon quantum fluctuations. I mean, anything can be. We're made of subatomic particles. Just a little change caused by, a subatomic particle going here instead of there might lead to a very, very slightly different universe. But over time, those differences will stack up and lead to the butterfly effect thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Anyway, what was I going to talk about?
I don't know. It seemed like you were heading somewhere with that. What I was going to bring up was Mandela effect.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because this makes me... And we talked about the Mandela effect previously on another episode way back. We won't revisit it. I think everybody knows what the Mandela effect is. It's the Bernstein Bears. It's Kit Kat. It's Luke, I Am Your Father. Happening differently.
Pluto TV having sliders versus not having sliders.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Right here.
Brand new Mandela effect.
effect.
But anyway, we're not going to dig into a ton of examples. You can Google that. That's a lot of fun for people to go and explore on your own. I'm assuming for this conversation you know what the Mandela effect is. But something we've been seeing, say in the past decade or two since the Mandela effect became a phenomenon, is it seems to be rapidly increasing. There's more and more people saying, wait a minute, this part of reality isn't the way I remember it. This thing is different. I remember it differently. And each of those examples seems to resonate differently for different people. And I had this crazy thought. So you're familiar with quantum immortality. That's this
Yes,
idea.
I think about it every single day, actually.
And you said something on a previous episode that really stuck with me, where you're talking about how if you die in one universe, your consciousness just pops over to another universe where you didn't die in that moment, and your consciousness continues to perpetuate. Mm-hmm. But as you get older and you approach the point where just a natural death of old age becomes more and more likely, the probabilities collapse. Mm-hmm. And eventually you will die. What if that's happening to our entire civilization? More and more realities are blinking out, and all these consciousnesses are coalescing on ours because it's narrowing, because we're approaching some major cataclysmic event like an asteroid obliterating Earth or a nuclear war. So our universe is getting overcrowded from all these other universes where that's happening.
Do you remember when we were discussing Project Looking Glass?
Yeah.
We did a whole episode on that. And Project Looking Glass, it was basically, in theory,
Yeah.
it was this secret, deep state project. Recovered extraterrestrial technology was utilized to build this device that could see into the future, or at least see into possible futures.
Yeah.
But then, after the year 2012, the machine stopped working.
Yeah,
It
it was
stopped
just this-
showing possible futures.
It was just a hazy,
Yeah.
like a white haze, like static.
The theory behind that being that some decision was made in the year 2012 that set humanity on a fixed path. Something was set in motion that no amount of decisions or quantum fluctuations can alter.
Yeah.
So maybe we are approaching some sort of, I don't know whether you call it
an inflection point, a point of no return, a singularity.
No, we've passed that. We're on a set course now.
So we're post-singularity.
I mean,
I
depends which
feel like our
singularity
world
you're
is
talking about.
post-singularity. Think about how crazy our world has become just recently.
Yeah.
I would say things really started ramping up after 9/11, but ever since 2020 and COVID, it's just we're on a bullet train to crazy town.
Yeah.
Don't you think? What if that acceleration is part of it? What if all that weirdness of the world is because we're living through a model collapse?
Yeah, a convergence of timelines.
Yeah.
Like in The Legend of Zelda.
Is that what happens in The Legend of Zelda?
Kinda, sorta. Because I'm going to talk about Zelda for just a minute.
Okay.
Because the timeline of the Legend of Zelda games, it's very confusing because it splits into all these branching timelines. Starting with Ocarina of Time.
Right.
Because the game Majora's Mask is a sequel to Ocarina of Time. Link defeats Ganon, and then he goes back in time and gets to re-experience his childhood. The world doesn't really remember his heroism because it took place in a future that no longer exists. So there's that timeline. And then there's the timeline where Link doesn't go back to the past and re-experiences childhood. He still defeats Ganon, but he remains an adult in the future. That leads to the timeline of the Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
And then there's a timeline where Ganon defeats Link. Link dies at the end. And that apparently leads to the game, the first Legend of Zelda and on the NES. Each of these timeline spawns its own games in the overarching series. And then there's the game Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is interesting because Breath of the Wild is supposed to take place at the very end of the timeline.
Yeah.
But which timeline? It takes place supposedly thousands of years in the future. But of which timeline? Because in the game, references are made to events that happened in all three of these timelines.
Or it could just be sloppy lore development.
No, this is all explained in the game Hyrule Warriors: The Age of Calamity. Because, I don't know, something weird goes wrong with the Triforce, and there's some temporal event, and people and places and things from all three timelines just merge into one.
Oh, I had no idea Legend of Zelda lore was this complicated.
Oh, it's very complicated and confusing. So maybe that's where we're at. We're at Breath of the Wild era. Timelines are converging.
Yeah, maybe. It feels like it to me. And that would certainly explain a bunch of Mandela effects, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of people having different recall of what reality is supposed to be. When you think about it, it's such a fundamental thing for how we anchor ourselves, that we kind of trust that the way I experience the world, the way I remember the past and historical events is exactly what you remember. So suddenly more and more frequently people comparing notes and saying, no, our notes don't match up, it takes away this foundation of how we look at the world. It's not one thing. It's kind of this hazy, cloudy blob of possibilities. That might be the true nature of how we exist, is that you actually are constantly shifting between these. But you don't notice because most realities that are very close to each other are going to be very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
Like the ones nearest to your existence are going to be the ones that are most closely aligned to your experience of the world. Mm-hmm. It's not until you get pretty far afield where you start seeing real differences.
But I mean, even realities that are like very, very similar to each other, like this reality and a reality where the only difference is one single particle behaved a little differently.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. Even those very similar realities, they can branch off in wildly different directions.
Yeah, but it will take time, like the
Yeah.
butterfly effect, for that small difference to magnify into large changes.
Well, sometimes it doesn't even take that much time because history is full of these inflection points where even just if one decision made by one person had gone just slightly differently, all of the rest of history would have unfolded in a completely different direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought a really fun one, because part of our work for this week, we both had the thought, what are some scenarios we could cook up?
Yeah.
How our world might be different if things unfolded a little differently. What are some of these other what-if universes that are close to ours? I just want to give a fun example. I know you've got a really good one you're going to go into detail, but I just want to throw this one out there because we always have to have some kind of Star Trek reference on a show. I had just the obvious thought, okay, what if Gene Roddenberry never created Star Trek? How would the world look different? Right? And that might seem like something relatively minor. It's a TV show, but it's one of the most popular TV shows in all the history of television. You're not just removing a franchise, you're removing 60 years worth of accumulated influence across fields of study, science, technology, politics, philosophy. And right away, I think the future becomes way more bleak. Star Trek very much painted a world of optimism where humanity doesn't destroy itself. It evolves beyond racism and war and goes to explore the galaxy. Mm-hmm. A lot of scientists and astronauts, computer technicians attribute their careers specifically to being influenced by Star Trek.
Yeah.
Some notable ones: Mae Jemison, astronaut Sally Ride, first woman in space. Even if you think about the Alcubierre warp drive, that Mexican physicist. I'm not sure how many people will be familiar with this, but directly inspired by Star Trek, a physicist created an equation for a functioning warp drive. Now, there's some caveats to put on that in terms of making it work. It works on paper, right? Yeah. The physics work. We can't build one per se, but that might be something we are able to do one day, directly inspired by a television series.
Yeah, it works exactly in the same way as it's described in Star Trek.
Yeah, so you erase that TV show from history, and maybe we don't make that technology. Maybe we never would have built cell phones or tablet computers. Touchscreen interfaces is a big one. Touchscreen interfaces was imagined on Star Trek in the late 80s. What would that, like 15 years before it existed, at least, right? Mm-hmm. Directly inspired by Star Trek. And even social changes. The original Star Trek series pioneered representation in television. Martin Luther King famously encouraged the actress who played Uhura, what's her name? Nichelle Nichols, because she wanted to leave the show. And she had met Martin Luther King, and he said, no, you can't, because it's too important.
Do not leave.
It's too important that you're there on television as a black woman, as a member of the crew of the Enterprise, because it was so culturally important at that time. Yeah. So anyway, that's one example that I thought would just be fun, because we pay homage to Star Trek on here. But anyway, let's get into your one.
So in a world without Star Trek, what you're saying is, the world is a less hopeful place. Yeah. Maybe a little more technologically stunted.
Yeah. Or technology might look really different. Yeah. The kind of user interfaces we're accustomed to, they might look entirely different and be way more utilitarian. Maybe we'd still be all working in like DOS Windows or something instead of the really slick interfaces we get today, right? If Star Trek never happened.
Okay. Well, the alternate history I've envisioned here is quite a bit darker, actually. And you know what?
I knew you'd go really dark, because you always do.
I do have to give a quick shout out to my good friend Drew on this one, because the whole idea for this episode was inspired by a conversation I had with Drew.
Okay.
So
shout out to Drew.
Yeah, he was a huge fan of the show, by the way. He's always listening.
He's one of our best supporters.
And so thank you so much. But I was talking to him, and he was describing this new movie he'd gone to see over the weekend. It's called Pressure.
Okay.
And the movie, it's World War II.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of about the lead up to the D-Day invasion and all the planning that went into that, and how it was almost canceled. The whole invasion was almost called off because of the weather, because they needed a very specific break in the weather in order to launch this invasion, and they weren't getting it. Didn't look like they were getting it. If they couldn't launch this amphibious assault during this huge storm, if they tried anyway, it would fail. But if they called it off, or if they delayed it, they could only maintain the secrecy of it for so long. If they delayed it for too long, the Germans would learn of this, be ready for them, and just cut everyone down. Fortunately, in our history, the one we live in, that break in the weather did come, and they were able to launch Operation Overlord. But Drew was saying to me, it's crazy that almost didn't happen. We might all be speaking German if that break in the weather didn't happen. And I said, well, hold on there, not necessarily, because the war wouldn't have ended the same way, but the war probably would have still ended.
Yeah.
The good guys probably would have still won, because you have to think, as they were launching D-Day, the Manhattan Project was already well underway. So if they couldn't break Germany through a conventional invasion, they may have, if the war dragged out much longer, they might have just used their new toys, atom bombs, on Germany instead of Japan.
Right. Yeah.
And that is the history I want to explore here. How would that have played out?
Okay, cool. Buckle up. I'm ready for it.
Okay, so we begin in June 1944. D-Day is canceled. It's not delayed because they can only maintain secrecy for so long. It is canceled outright because of the weather. This is devastating for the morale of the Allied troops. Russia sees this as a betrayal. Stalin is furious, and he goes ahead and he launches his invasion from the east anyway. But he no longer considers Britain, the United States, Canada, he no longer considers them allies. Okay. They've betrayed him. He's going it alone.
Well, now it reduces Germany to fighting on a single front, too.
Yeah, so the Eastern Front is way bloodier because Germany is able to pull more troops, more resources, and throw it towards Russia. So that drags out a lot longer. But eventually, 1945, the decision is made because, the Trinity test has been a success, and we've got two working devices. So the decision gets made. The first bomb is dropped on Hamburg. I actually had Chatbot put together some fictional quotes from historical figures.
Oh, okay, fun.
But during this timeline, President Harry S. Truman makes a radio address in 1945. He says, "A new force has entered the war, and with it a new burden has entered the conscience of mankind. I will not dress this decision in glory. I will not tell the mothers of America, Britain, Russia, or Germany that fire from the atom is anything but a dreadful instrument. But I will say this, the enemy was given every road away from ruin, and chose ruin every time. We have used this weapon to shorten the war. Now we must pray it has not lengthened the shadow of every war to come." So the hope is, when they drop this first atom bomb on Hamburg, that Germany will surrender. It does not. Germany is very defiant. Actually, Goebbels makes a statement saying, "The Americans have split the atom because they could not split the German will." Germany becomes very defiant. So what do? Germany had its own atomic program during the war.
That's right.
It wasn't nearly as far along as the American program, but they were working on it. They were nowhere close to a working bomb, but they had all the material for one. They launched dirty bomb attacks, basically pack a bunch of V-series rockets with radiological material and hit London with it in retaliation.
Yeah. Just dirty bombs.
Yeah. Churchill makes a statement. "The Hun has found a weapon more wicked than terror. Uncertainty. A bomb explodes once. Poisoned doubt explodes every morning." So major cities in Great Britain are poisoned by radiation.
Yeah.
Millions of people die. And this eventually evolves into kind of a tit-for-tat atomic war between Germany and the Allies. Eventually, the order is given to drop an atomic bomb on Berlin. This completely fractures the Nazi leadership. Eventually, a ground invasion does succeed in Europe, launched by the Americans and the British and the Canadians. But this fractured German leadership begins this scorched earth policy, and they've already kind of crossed that threshold of using dirty bombs. So they start launching them all over Europe to slow the advance of the Russians, to slow the advance of the Americans. So the war still ends, the Allies still win, but it's a much...
Europe is decimated and irradiated.
Yeah, it's a much darker victory. And far different political blocs emerge. You know, in our history, very swiftly after the end of World War II, Europe is divided between the Soviet Union and, you know, the NATO bloc.
Yeah.
It's divided a little less cleanly in this timeline because huge swaths of Europe are now contaminated with radiation.
Mm-hmm.
The division is more about, you know, green habitable zones, yellow restricted zones, red sealed off zones.
Right.
And black zones, which are just unknown, classified.
Right. The Grand Canyon.
Yes, the Grand Canyon. Central Europe, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Eastern France, parts of Denmark, is the most devastated in this exchange. That becomes known as the Rhine Custody Zone. It's basically run by a multinational military administration. People afterwards born in this zone, you can't leave this zone. Travel is allowed within this zone, but they're given special passports for travel. They're not considered German. They're not considered really French. Begin calling themselves the Rhine-born, because this whole part of Central Europe has to be sealed off. It's too contaminated. But there's still people in there.
Right.
But they belong to no nation, really. Anyway, the political blocs that emerge out of this timeline, traditional NATO countries, Britain, US, Ireland, Canada, France, Portugal, Spain, Iceland, that becomes known as the Atlantic Compact. And it's like NATO, but it's far more protectionist. The United States is focused a lot more inward. Apocalyptic Christianity becomes a much bigger part of their politics. The old Warsaw Pact countries, those are now known as the Slavic Shield. Basically, it's a collection of buffer states between the Soviet Union and the Atlantic Compact, very similar to the Warsaw Pact. And then there is another new political bloc that emerges out of this, calling themselves the Unburned World. This consists of India, Indonesia, Egypt, Ghana, Latin America, other Middle Eastern countries, and they believe in peace through refusal. They isolate themselves completely from the European powers. They want nothing to do with these wars.
Right.
They're very anti-nuclear weapons, and they generally just don't trade or interact with either of these two other blocs.
Okay.
The Cold War still happens. In this timeline, it's not called the Cold War. It's called the Ash Wars. And basically what happens in this timeline, because that nuclear taboo has been crossed, even more so.
Right.
You know, in our timeline, the atom bomb was used once and only once. But in this timeline,
twice.
Twice. But I mean,
one
series of strikes.
Yeah.
And it was very one-sided. In this timeline, you know, it devolves into like a complete exchange, an actual nuclear war.
Yeah.
So that nuclear taboo is a lot weaker in this timeline.
Right. People aren't so hesitant to cross that line, pull that trigger.
Yeah. So countries in each of these blocks, they pursue nuclear weapons a lot more aggressively. There are a lot more nuclear powers.
Yeah.
And they're far more willing to use those nuclear weapons. So the Cold War, instead of, you know, never going hot, in this timeline, there are still these different blocks still engaged in proxy wars. But there are limited nuclear exchanges here and there. I mean, this timeline branches in a bunch of different directions. That's why I'm just kind of giving you the setup here.
Yeah, totally. It's a really fun premise. You might have to write a book.
Well, I thought it would be fun to at least write like an article of the timeline. I only going over it kind of surface level here, but to actually kind of break down the whole timeline of events and the different factions that get involved here. And I kind of ran through different versions of this, kind of leading up to the year 2026, if we even make it to the year 2026. And in each version of this leads to a world where things are a lot more protectionist. Countries are a lot more focused inward. Instead of the internet, for example, we have several different internets.
Yeah.
There's the Atlantic internet, there's the Eastern internet.
Which creates a kind of more cultural isolationism within that, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have that sharing of media and ideas.
Yeah. And that got me thinking that it's actually kind of similar to how the world's starting to go now.
Now, yeah.
Countries are becoming more and more protectionist. Even right now with AI, the current American administration, they're becoming very protectionist about AI.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let Anthropic release the new version of Claude. They said you can only make it available to American citizens. Anthropic said we don't have any kind of verification like that in place, so they had to cancel it completely. They're doing the same thing with OpenAI now, GPT.
Yeah.
Like you make this available, but only to American citizens. And it won't be long before China follows suit. DeepSeek is only available to Chinese citizens.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bad sign. When resources become scarce, natural reflex is to close ranks and to hoard. So, yeah, it's probably a bad sign. It made me think of Man in the High Castle, which I only just started watching last night. I know it's been around for a while, but it's just one I never got around to. And I mean, when we started talking about this episode, we were kind of batting ideas around, and we considered even framing the whole episode around Philip K. Dick.
Yeah.
And the idea of the Man in the High Castle. But we wanted to do something more original, right? Create something new that people weren't already familiar with. But it's a really fascinating premise. And I think even Philip K. Dick, he was a little out there. I think a lot of his writing process, he would consult the I Ching, which is a Japanese form of divination, right? It's like tea leaves.
He would also consult a lot of hallucinogenic drugs during his writing process.
Yeah.
So Philip K. Dick, aside from writing this story about an alternate timeline, he believed he was actually living alternately in two different timelines.
Right, and kind of hopping back and forth.
And his consciousness was constantly shifting between him, Philip K. Dick, the writer, and Peter, the Roman citizen, in a timeline where the Roman Empire never ended. Actually, in his autobiographical book, the Exegesis, which is just a collection of his kind of notes and letters and ramblings, the phrase keeps appearing, the empire never ended, the empire never ended.
Yeah, really fascinating. I mean, I think maybe on a future episode we could focus really on a Philip K. Dick himself, because, really interesting character. But I love this idea. Have you ever had an experience in your life where you thought, like a really strong deja vu or Mandela effect or something like that, where you're like, wait a minute, the universe isn't right?
Yeah, just now with Pluto TV. But I remember this very specifically. I remember, when I was little, when we had the house in Killarney, I was going to elementary school at Alex Ferguson School. Alex Ferguson School, it was close enough to our house that during lunch I could just walk home for lunch. Mm-hmm. And usually Mom would come and walk with me, and she'd walk with me back to school. Had like an hour for lunch. It was like a 5-10 minute walk.
Yeah.
So I'd come home, have lunch with Mom, walk back. And I remember on one of these walks back, we were walk past this park on the way to the school. And this park has like a community center building next to it. Okay. We were walking past this park with this community center, and I remember looking over the community center, and I got really freaked out because up until that point, I had no memory of that building being there.
Right.
It was just an open park, and all of a sudden there was this building there.
Yeah.
And I remember I was really freaked out about it, and I was telling Mom about it. I'm like, where'd that building come from? That building wasn't there. Mom was actually getting kind of mad at me.
Kind of annoyed.
Point. She's like, no, we walk by it every day. It's always been there.
Yeah.
But I swear to this day, I'd never seen that building before.
Right.
And it's kind of weird. I'd walk by it every day and never notice it.
Yeah. Especially if you have a distinct memory of that location, but that location being different, being something else. Do you recall any details from that park that stick out?
Like
what was the other version of that property like?
The property looked the same. The park next to it looked the same, but where the building was just an extension of the park.
Right. So it was just a field.
Yeah,
an
it
open
was
field.
just trees and grass. There was no building there. There was no
crazy.
parking lot for a building. It was just an extension of the park.
So you might be in the wrong dimension.
You know, I think about
different
this
dimension.
often. That's why I said I think about this quantum immortality theory. I think about it every day almost, because I find it very upsetting in a way to think about. The version of me sitting here talking to you right now might not be the same you that you remember, that you've known your whole life.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I find this idea very upsetting.
Yeah, well, like I was mentioning earlier, it unmoors you from what is supposed to be the thing you can depend on to orient yourself in this world, right? I shared a story on our social media on Instagram that I came across. I don't have all the details here, but in brief, it was this woman in France who was ill and ended up being put into a medical-induced coma for whatever reason. I don't recall. Mm-hmm. And she comes out of the coma 3 weeks later, and she's absolutely devastated because during those 3 weeks where she was comatose, she lived 7 years of some other person's life, where she had another family, she had kids, she was raising them, and it all felt completely real to her. Not like a dream, like it was real. And she accepted that as her reality to the point where she had trouble readjusting to this world when she came out of this coma and had to go through grief therapy for mourning the loss of the loved one she had in this other life while she was comatose. And there's other examples of stories like this. There's DMT experiences I've read about that are like this. I remember this really crazy one of this guy. It was like New Year's Eve, and he was at a friend's house with his family to celebrate New Year's Eve. And he had went to his friend's study or whatever, and he offered him DMT, and he took a really hard hit and just collapsed, fell down on the floor. And in his friend's reality, this was a medical emergency. All of a sudden, oh no, he's got to let everyone else in the house know. They got to call an ambulance because this guy's just lost it. He's unresponsive. And he's maybe out for 20 minutes. But in that 20 minutes, he wakes up on a beach, having just been pulled out of the water by his friends that are calling him a different name. And he lived 8 years. And he remembered his previous life. And he went through therapy. Everyone thought he was crazy, but he eventually just had to give in because this new world seemed so real. He just eventually accepted that, oh, my old life, that must have been a hallucination.
Just like on Star Trek.
Yeah, there's a Star Trek episode where this happens. A couple, probably. But can you imagine that? Can you imagine just immediately being ripped out of your life and dropped in someone else's? And it being so real that you just have to go with it. Like, do you think that happens?
I hope it doesn't happen to me.
Totally.
I'm
Totally. It makes you wonder.
I'm quite fond of my life and the people in it.
It makes you wonder. And like, what is happening there? Like, there's a big time difference, right? This woman's in a coma for 3 weeks, but she experiences 7 years. This other guy, he takes a hit of DMT. He's out for 20 minutes. He lives close to a decade of someone else's life. How do you know you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning in another life? And all of this we're experiencing right now just seems like a dream you had last night. You know? It really messes with my brain.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Well, anyway, we're running out of time here.
Well, I think we should. There was so many other things I wanted to get to, but maybe I don't know.
Anything you can break down on brief? We completely forgot to talk about our new affiliate partner, oldglory.com. We've got an affiliate partner now. You can go to this website, oldglory.com, buy yourself a Beatles t-shirt. Everyone's all about FIFA right now, sports teams, your favorite soccer club, and use the code Anomaly3 at checkout. You get 15% off, and you support the show at the same time, because we'll get a little, a commission on that.
Yes.
So please go visit them, check it out. They got lots of great stuff. And they got paranormal stuff on too. They've got Bigfoot merch. They've got Cthulhu. But yeah, go support them and support us at the same time and save yourself 15% on your
Return
purchase.
your wardrobe to its old glory.
That's right.
Very good.
Oldworld.com.
Anyway,
Anomaly 3.
just rapid fire. I want to get through one more thing because
Okay.
I want to take it back to post World War II, 1945. In 1945, Europe, very politically unstable, devastated, fractured. A small group of hardline totalitarian politicians gathers in Bavaria. They decide liberal democracy has failed. They want to bring back the Reich.
Okay.
They want to bring back fascism. They want it back. But they have to be careful. They start using language like the people, democracy, national revival in order to win support,
Okay.
which they do. They establish themselves in Bavaria. They are known as the Circle Trigon Party.
Okay.
And this party is ruled by 3 dictators, or a trinity of leaders. Their symbol is a green triangle inside a white circle. Once established...
Is this still from your original
Nope,
scenario?
this is our world.
Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead. All right. Sorry. Pardon
Once
me.
established in Bavaria, the movement spreads to northern Italy, southern France, and Spain. This 3-person dictatorship actually becomes quite a strong power by 1946 in such a fractured Europe. It's part fascist, part revolutionary people state, and part military machine. Now, a lot of people haven't heard of this Circle Trigon Party. The reason is it's a complete fiction. It is a completely fictional alternate history that was
Okay.
devised by the U.S. military as a training exercise. Because during their training, they wanted a consistent, recognizable enemy to fight. So they invented this alternate history and this fictitious enemy.
Oh, just so they could do wargaming.
Yeah. But this war game, it's consistent across 30 years. This war because the Circle Trigon Party, of course, they eventually, once they consolidate power in Europe, they eventually turn their sights towards the U.S. and they invade the United States. And that's what these war games are. They're invasions by the Circle Trigon Party. And they had their own uniforms, their own insignias. They even spoke their own language. The Circle Trigon Party's official language was Esperanto. And soldiers playing the part of the Circle Trigonists, they had to learn to speak Esperanto on the battlefields during these war games.
Oh, crazy.
And
So they really committed to this.
Yeah, it's like a whole alternate fictional World War III scenario
Yeah.
between the United States and the Circle Trigon Party. Like, look into it. It's fascinating.
That does sound fascinating. You know what? That made me think of something else we forgot to delve into. I meant to do this when we were talking about all the quantum mechanics stuff, but in terms of simulation theory, there's this idea that our universe is so perfectly attuned for life. If the settings were just adjusted a little bit, that matter itself wouldn't exist. The fact that cosmic forces were able to coalesce into stars and planets and actually even create our universe is such a narrow window that it must be created in some sense. It has to be deliberate. So you could invoke creationism or you could invoke simulation theory when you look at that. Or, of course, that's the universe we exist in if all other universes are possible. There's a billion other infinite universes where matter doesn't even exist. None of that could happen. Of course, we exist in the one that does because it's the only one we can.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting you bring up simulation theory because we talk about many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. It's a little difficult to imagine every time a particle behaves this way or that, or you make a decision.
Yep.
The whole universe splitting and duplicating itself over and over and over and over again. It's hard to imagine that. Where does all this matter come from? But it's a little
Where does
less...
it all go? What is it infinitely expanding into? Yeah.
But it's a little less difficult to wrap your head around that if it's not matter. What if it's just information?
Yeah.
What if it's just information being copied and pasted over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Oh, see, now it sounds a little bit more believable. And, the reason I bring up the Circle Trigon Party, this elaborate history, which was a complete fiction, but it's all very logically consistent. Like, this is a thing that could have happened.
Yeah.
And maybe somewhere out there in
It
the
probably is happening. Yeah.
infinitely large multiverse, it probably did happen. It's
Yeah.
probably happening right now, and infinite variations of it have probably occurred.
I've heard a theory that when you dream at night, you're really just experiencing other versions of parallel universes that you're living. You know, it's like you just drop into another universe, and that's what your dreams are, just windows.
Into the multiverse.
Where you, yeah, exactly. And some people report that they never dream, that they don't have any dreams. And supposedly that's because you don't exist in any other universes, or
Oh,
that
God.
you've already died in the vast majority of other existences, and that you might be rare and unique to this universe.
Well, it's like, that reminds me of the, speaking of quantum immortality, the quantum suicide experiment. Thankfully, it's just a thought experiment.
Yeah.
But imagine a game of Russian roulette where the decision of whether the gun fires or not, you know, you've got a gun pointed at you, pointed at your head, whether, you know, it just clicks or fires a bullet is dependent on the result of a detector which detects, you know, some randomly fluctuating subatomic particle. And you've got a 50% chance of the gun firing or the gun not firing. You know, you as the observer of this, you know, again, this particle is going to exist in both states, but you are the observer.
Right.
So obviously, you as the observer, your subjective experience is only going to experience the universe in which you survive.
Right. Yeah.
So the experiment is repeated. Again, 50-50 odds.
Yeah.
Click, you survive. The experiment's repeated again. Click, you survive. You survive every time. From everyone else's perspective, you've died.
Yeah.
So many times. This is
Yeah.
it's incredibly unlikely that you would survive these 50-50 odds every
and over.
time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But there is an infinitesimally small chance you would, and in some universe you do, and that's the universe your subjective experience follows.
Right.
Incredibly unlikely, but possible. It's like a person getting struck by lightning like 5 times. That actually happened to someone. He was like an avid outdoorsman.
That does happen,
Over
yeah.
the course of his life, he was struck by lightning 5 times. And even when he died, his grave was struck by lightning. You'd think that actually happened. And you'd think for
Poor guy.
for an
He's
individual
already-
for an
He's
individual
already
person,
in the ground.
yeah. Like, did he just piss off God? But for an individual person, that's incredibly unlikely to happen,
Yeah, totally.
right? But on a planet with billions of people living billions of different lives, it's going to happen to someone,
Yeah.
no matter how unlikely it is.
It's like winning the lottery as well. There's people that just win the lottery over and over again somehow,
Yeah.
just despite how unlikely that is, right? Now that I think of it, all of a sudden, haven't you both been like very nearly struck by lightning and almost very nearly won the lottery because you dreamed the numbers but then just failed to buy the ticket, but then the numbers won?
Yeah, both those things have happened.
Maybe you're a slider. Maybe you're sliding
So
between universes.
The lightning, it struck right next to me, and I had to go. I had to go to the hospital because I had like burns on my feet.
Yeah.
Afterwards, even.
It hit a
And-
tree, but you were really close by.
Yeah.
And it just, the current went through the ground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what did the doctor call it? Flashover, I think she called it. Anyway, the lottery. It was I had a dream that just had these numbers in it. Just very specifically had these numbers, and I woke up and I wrote them down because these numbers were very prominent in my dream, and I kept thinking to myself, I should buy a lottery ticket with these numbers. You know, I started my day, I got distracted, I was doing other things, completely forgot about it. The lottery draw was that night. I find this scrap of paper later in the evening, and I'm like, I wonder. So I check the lottery numbers. Those are the goddamn winning numbers.
I remember that. And you were legit bummed. I remember.
Yeah.
For a couple weeks.
Yeah, I was pretty
Like
upset with myself.
That I can imagine. Obviously, in some other parallel universe, you did buy that ticket. Mm-hmm. And that version of you is probably living a much better life.
I mean, maybe.
Or he died like 6 months later. Apparently that's a thing where you're like statistically you're very likely to die within a year of winning the lottery, apparently. Just because of the knock-on impacts that has on a person's life. All sorts of things, possibilities pop up, let's say. Opens up a whole new doorway to various probabilities. And I guess, yeah, you're extremely likely to pass away within a year of winning the lottery.
Well, I mean, this kind of reminds me of a quote, which I think would be a fitting way to close out this episode.
Yeah, let's have it. We're way over time. I mean, I think there's lots we're going to have to edit out of here.
This is a quote by an American author named James Branch Cabell. The optimist believes we live in the best of all possible worlds. A pessimist fears this is true. What does that mean? It means more money, more problems. And you know what? Maybe things wouldn't be as great as you hoped they would be if we were as big as Joe Rogan.
Yeah. I take away the message of just count your blessings, you know? It's easy to obsess about the ways in which your life could be better, but just remember there's equally as many ways in which it could be worse, or things could be worse off. So just appreciate what you got, because you never know. You could wake up tomorrow in an entirely different life, and this could all feel like a dream.
Do you think that this is the best of all possible timelines?
Well, no, I don't think it's the best of all possible, but it's the one we got to work with. Right? Got to play the hand you're dealt.
Well, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. All right. Great episode. Fun talk.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. This is going to be a good one. That's it. That's all I got. You got anything left? Just good night. Thank yous. We thank Japan. We did our sponsor. Yeah, I think we're good.
I already did like 2 shout outs and a quote. Like, what more do you want from me?
We covered it, I think.
Yeah.
We covered it. Okay, great. I hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for sticking around and joining us for the ride. Thanks for all your support, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night.
Good night.